If you watched my Santana 3 episode and thought Caravanserai was next, well yeah, that one's coming, but first we need to talk about a live album that sits in the middle of both masterpieces. Back in my teens, after experiencing the third album's insane delivery of Latin rock chops, I went back to my uncle and music guru for advice on which Santana record to get next. I've mentioned him on several episodes and managed to get a high school photograph of him circa 1977. This man right here by the name of Jose was my rock wisdom and roadmap to discover so many great records. Cheers to my uncle. So he told me where to go next after Santana 3. He couldn't remember the title but said, JCM, get the album with the orange looking cover. The year was 2002 when I found a copy of Caravanserai. Well, it was mostly blue. I thought the orange portion was good enough. I was mind blown with this Latin prog rock treasure. I called my uncle, who congratulated me on getting this CD, but said, JCM, this is not the one I was telling you about. It's orange and red. I think it has Santana's face on the cover. I hunted down this record through many shops. Nobody carried a CD copy, never mind vinyl. Few people knew it actually existed, and just when I thought it was impossible, there it was, my own personal copy. I went home and discovered it was a live album, a strange live album with weird audience noises, and new songs and arrangements I've never heard before. I enjoyed the live concert energy and sound, but it felt like a different version of the Santana Band. It was both a fascinating and overwhelming listen, the kind of album that achieves urban legend status and takes years to digest. Once you hear the magic of it, you come to understand it's a Latin rock and funk odyssey like very few. 3 months later, I got my copy of Band of Gypsies and recognized the name. It was Buddy Miles, again. I thought it was a conspiracy. Who was this guy? Why is he playing with Jimi Hendrix and Carlos Santana? So motivated by my recent documentary on Santana 3, I felt the time was right to tell the story of the other Band of Gypsies, a stellar cast of musicians and a transition move for Carlos Santana, before he cut his hair short into Caravanserai. The album that time forgot and holds a disturbing production secret, a once-in-a-lifetime concert personnel. Did you know they played a show inside a volcanic crater? This is the making of Carlos Santana and Buddy Miles, live. First things first, as a Led Zeppelin channel doing a piece on a different band. What is the Led Zeppelin connection to Buddy Miles and Santana? Well, both Zeppelin and Miles appeared on the 1969 film Super Show and were a part of the Fillmore East list of events that same year. Buddy Miles and Santana shared the stage with Pacific Gas and Electric on August 8, 1969. Led Zeppelin and Santana played Seattle's Pop Festival in July 1969 and shared the bill on October 19th at Chicago's Kinetic Playground. And now let's go into our main topic for the show. Guys, I'll be honest, revisiting this album was exciting for me. It had been years since I'd listened to this 1972 release, and truth to be told, this episode was a great learning experience that I hope sheds light on a forgotten treasure. So like I mentioned on the making of Santana 3, the band's last show of 1971 was scheduled for December 11th in Lima, Peru. Once they arrived in the South American country, the government decided their lifestyle and rockstar looks were unacceptable. Thus, in a series of strange events, they were deported back to the United States with their gear lost forever in Peru. With their last US concerts that year held in Honolulu International Center, it made sense to go back to Hawaii and wait for the upcoming Diamond Head Crater Festival of 1972 on January 1st, aka the Sunshine Festival. Now, a fun fact about this show, Santana's official page doesn't have it on their concert list for 1972. Strange, right? Located on the Hawaiian island of Oahu, the Diamond Head State Monument was a military site for the US Army in the early 1900s. Thus, a site and tunnels were constructed, including a trail that climbs all the way to the top. With its volcanic shape, it does look like the perfect hideaway for a James Bond villain. Times changed and the Sunshine Festival, or the Hawaiian Woodstock, started taking place in 1969. Making use of the ideal landscape with no neighbors complaining about the noise, plus the surroundings elevating the groovy concert spirit, it soon became a big name in rock and roll. 1970 had the Beach Boys, Linda Ronstadt, Steve Miller, Quicksilver Messenger Service, American band Big Brother and the Holding Company, where Janis Joplin used to be from 1966 to 1968, and the acoustic folk duo from LA, Lambert and Nuttycombe. Santana was the star of the 1972 edition with a very interesting lineup. If you watch my episode on the making of Santana 3, you'll recognize many names here from the album's liner notes. We have Carlos Santana on guitar and vocals, Neil Schon on guitar, and Mingo Lewis on percussion, who joined Santana back in October 1971. This show talks about a wanton return of two former Santana bandmates, Coco Escobedo and Mike Carabello, who had a personal beef with Santana, which led to his 1971 exit. Next is Sly and the Family Stone's Greg Errico on drums, and the signature trumpet wizardry of Luis Gasca. Both musicians were guest players on Santana 3. Now let's take a look at the rest of the musicians on the album. We have Ron Johnson on bass guitar, with a fascinating resume of jazz, rock, soul, and funk recordings up to 1972.
Happiness is your sweet kiss, baby, when you put your arms around me, baby.
Next is Victor Pantoja, a percussion legend that added his talents on many vibrant recordings, including Willie Bobo's Spanish Grease, Carl Jader's Soulburst, a record I happen to own, and it's fantastic. Gabor Szabo's Spellbender from 1966, where future Santana classic Gypsy Queen is from, and Hubert Law's Flute by Laws. Next is Hadley Callman on sax, who released a cosmic jazz fusion album in 1971 by the name of Iapetus. This album has Victor Pantoja on congas and Luis Gasca on trumpet. Check out the title track and you'll see where the sax intro for Caravanserai comes from. Hadley Callman was a very talented musician, to say the least. Next we have Bob Hoggins on organ and electric piano. He was primarily known for his work on 3 albums by the man himself, Buddy Miles, who played drums, percussion, and vocals on Santana's 1972 show in Hawaii. So what about Buddy Miles? Where was his career at the time? So past his 1970 split of his Buddy Miles Express Band and disbanding the famous band of Gypsies, he recorded a studio album, 1971's We Gotta Live Together, plus putting out a live record that same year by the name of Buddy Miles Band Live. This album featured Buddy's hit song, Them Changes, released for a 3rd time after the original studio version and Band of Gypsy's own take with Jimi Hendrix and Billy Cox. To say Buddy Miles could use the publicity of playing with Carlos Santana is not far-fetched. Columbia put out a greatest hits vinyl of Buddy's late 60s band, The Electric Flag, in 1971. This band had guitar hero Mike Bloomfield, whom Carlos Santana greatly admired, so to jam along a drummer who played with Bloomfield and Jimi Hendrix a couple of years ago was a no-brainer. There's enough evidence to see why Columbia CBS made this collaboration and live recording possible.
Talk about our days surfing. Too bad that beer isn't Genesee. Back home I used to drink Genesee Draft. So light, so good. Man, I miss that beer.
Unforgettable Genesee, the best from the beer makers.
The Santana Buddy Miles 2 drum kit group took the stage on January 1st, 1972. While the album is 46 minutes long, the whole concert ran for almost 90 minutes. The numbers don't add up, right? So here's the kicker. According to several sources, including some of the musicians themselves, the album was actually recorded live in the studio. This means what we hear is an alleged fake concert. Why would they do this? Several reasons. Some of the bandmates tripping on LSD, power outages messing the recording truck's equipment, and security guard FM radios bleeding into the tapes, like these birds right here. As I'm speaking right now, there's bird sounds. Sorry about that, guys. In short, the live recording was unusable, and Columbia CBS expected an album. Another hint is the CD booklet itself, that shows a January 0, 1972 date for the concert never happening. Some reports state Mike Carabello was not even present at the gig, There's also an annoying audience cheer sound loop that runs throughout the recording, which is hilarious after you listen to the same whistle over and over again. So how can we be extra sure this is not a conspiracy theory? Well, we have a fantastic bootleg from the actual concert that shows many musical differences to the final product beyond some minor edits. So I decided to compare both sources to be absolutely sure. My theory is that they actually recorded overdubs in the studio, but kept some of the main rhythm tracks from the actual show in Hawaii. The constant applause and crowd noise doesn't sound live at all. Track 1, Marbles, was written by John McLaughlin, or McLaughlin. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. Do you guys know? Let me know in the comment section. So Marbles was released on his 1970 album by the name of Devotion. Buddy Miles was the drummer on this record. Track 2, Lava, is a jam credited to Buddy Miles, where either Carlos or Neil go nuts on the wah-wah pedal before coming back to a coda again into Marbles. Track 3 is an uptempo version of Evil Ways, with a killer brass section and a faster tempo that certainly adds much spice to Santana's 1969 take. Some clapping in here does sound like an overdub. Track 4 is Faith Interlude, credited to both Santana and Miles. It follows some vibes to Miles Davis' In a Silent Way. Track 5 is Them Changes, for the 4th time on record since its release. Buddy Miles really pushed this hit song for Miles. The Santana treatment flows naturally in this tune, which sounds better than Ben of Gypsy's own take, to be honest. Track number 6 closes the album with a controversial running time of 24 minutes. I think this is progressive Latin funk, if you ask me. With writing credits Greg Errico, bassist Ron Johnson, Miles and Carlos, this is one of Santana's most experimental compositions and one hell of a jam. It's been criticized to death on many publications I've read through the years, but hear me out. If you love jazz fusion and jazz rock, this is no filth, but a freeform funkified triumph that trails into the enchanting waters of the unknown, and some elements later present in Caravanserai. With Caravanserai recorded February to May 1972, I think any overdub or rhythm track recording sessions for Santana Buddy Miles took place throughout January. The album's official release date of June 7, 1972 makes it quite hard to believe they would take time for this during the Caravanserai framework. Once you know all the information, the album's title is quite hilarious, with the inclusion of the word live at the end. Like they needed to remind the public this was an actual concert. Or was it? My final verdict on the album is that it's both live and studio, because of the 24-minute track that wasn't played in Hawaii. My personal opinion is that they used some of the rhythm tracks mixed with overdubbing in parts to create the best of both worlds. Artwork duties were handled by Santana 3's own Joan Chase from Heavy Water Light Show. Both front cover images were taken at the actual concert in Hawaii, with Carlos wearing a snake pattern shirt and a tribal necklace. The inside gatefold featured an audience shot with cutout photographs from the show. Carlos Santana and Buddy Miles Live sold almost the exact number of copies as Caravanserai, landing the bottom position of the top 25 records of 1972. Past Santana's Diamond Head visit, rock trio Sears, Sean and Errico played Sunshine Festival in 1973. America visited the volcanic crater in 1976, followed by Journey in 1977 and Little River Band in 1978. Buddy Miles and Santana teamed up again for a live show collaboration in 1986 that extended into working together for 1987's Freedom, featuring Buddy Miles on vocals. Defined as a Carlos Santana solo record and technically his first live album until Lotus and Moonflower, it's a wild sonic document that captures the ferocity and spirit of the post-Woodstock trilogy Santana. A unique lineup that, whether it was live in the studio or the actual stage in Hawaii, delivered creative performances of volcanic musicianship. This is the missing link between Santana's finest moments that deserves to be revisited. It's a record that doesn't pretend to be anything else. but one big celebration in the spirit of the early 70s. The album has been released in many formats without any bonus tracks nor outtakes, never mind liner notes, no information on the concert. It remains a hidden treasure within Santana's discography, an evening of Carlos and friends having fun for the sake of it. This is rock and roll before ritualistic world tours dressed in white. This is a moment in history, freeform funkified, a record where Latin soul and funk shine so bright. This was the making of Carlos Santana and Buddy Miles live. Thank you very much for watching. As always, you can support me via PayPal or Patreon, and stick around for the next episode on the making of Caravanserai. Bye bye.